The story begins with Jensen Ames, an ordinary man who has seen his fair share of hardship. Jensen is an industrial worker, toiling day in and day out at a steel mill to provide for his family. But life takes another cruel turn when the mill's management announces that it's shutting down. What's worse, they reveal that the workers won't even receive their full wages. The news spreads like wildfire, sparking outrage among the workers who had already been struggling to make ends meet. Frustration boils over, and the workers decide to protest. They gather outside the mill, waving signs and shouting demands for justice. As the crowd grows larger, so does the tension. Jensen is among them, his face set in grim determination. This isn't just about the money. It's about dignity and survival. The air is thick with anger, and the arrival of the anti-riot police only makes matters worse. Armed with shields, batons, and tear gas, the officers approach the protesters like an army advancing on enemy lines. It doesn't take much to ignite chaos. A thrown bottle, a shouted insult, and suddenly, the police retaliate with brutal force. Batons swing, protesters scream, and pandemonium erupts. Jensen watches in horror as his co-workers, men and women he's known for years, are mercilessly beaten. Something snaps inside him. He can't stand by while innocent people are attacked. With a surge of adrenaline, Jensen throws himself into the fray. He takes down one officer, then another, his fists fueled by a righteous anger. The scene descends into a blur of chaos, with Jensen fighting for what little justice he can muster. By the time the dust settles, Jensen is exhausted but standing tall. His actions have made him a hero among the workers, but a marked man in the eyes of the law. When Jensen finally makes it home, it's late at night, and the house is quiet. He steps through the door, greeted by the comforting warmth of home. His wife greets him with a tired but loving smile, and he heads upstairs to check on their baby. It's a small moment of peace in an otherwise stormy life, but Jensen cherishes it. What he doesn't know is that danger has followed him home. A masked intruder has broken into the house. While Jensen is upstairs, the criminal seizes the opportunity to strike. He moves silently through the house like a shadow, heading straight for the kitchen where Jensen's wife is preparing something. In a brutal and horrifying moment, the intruder murders her. Jensen, completely unaware of the horror unfolding downstairs, heads back down moments later. Before he can react, the intruder ambushes him, delivering a crushing blow that knocks him unconscious. As Jensen lies helpless on the floor, the murderer plants the weapon in his hand, staging the perfect crime. Before leaving, the killer makes a chilling gesture, pointing his gloved fingers like a gun at Jensen's unconscious body. Jensen wakes up to flashing lights and the sound of sirens. Police flood the house, guns drawn. Dazed and confused, Jensen looks down to see the murder weapon in his hand. He barely has time to process what's happening before he's tackled and handcuffed. His protests fall on deaf ears. In their eyes, the evidence is clear. Jensen has murdered his wife. 6 months later, Jensen is transferred to Terminal Island Prison, a place notorious for its brutality. The moment he arrives, he is greeted by guard Ulrich, a sadistic officer who seems to enjoy inflicting pain. Jensen is hosed down with freezing water, shivering violently as Ulrich smirks. Another officer lands a heavy blow, making sure Jensen understands his place. Things only get worse when Jensen is shoved into a cell with 3 menacing inmates. They size him up, eager to assert dominance. However, Jensen is no stranger to fighting. When Ulrich returns later, hoping to find Jensen beaten and broken, he is shocked to discover the opposite. Jensen stands over his unconscious cellmates, his fists bloodied but victorious. It's clear that Jensen isn't someone to mess with. The next morning, Jensen heads to the mess hall. The atmosphere is tense, filled with dangerous men eyeing each other like predators. Jensen tries to keep a low profile, but he's already caught the attention of Coach, Gunner, and Liss, a trio of prisoners who recognize him. Whispers spread through the hall. Jensen isn't just any convict. He's a former champion driver, a man whose record-breaking career ended in tragedy. Just as Jensen sits down to eat, 2 prisoners approach him. Pachenko and his friend glare at him, with pure hatred. Without warning, Pachenko spits in Jensen's food and hurls a string of vile insults, calling him a wife killer and child abuser. The words hit Jensen like a slap to the face. Rage bubbles up inside him, and before he knows it, he's on his feet, fists flying. The two men clash violently, but before the fight can escalate, guards intervene, dragging Jensen away. Jensen is taken to the office of Claire Hennessey, the prison's cunning and manipulative warden. Hennessey is no ordinary administrator. She's a woman with a vision, and she needs Jensen for it. She reveals that she knows all about his past as a phenomenal driver and offers him a deal. She wants Jensen to take on the identity of Frankenstein, a masked legend in the death race. The real Frankenstein, she explains, died in his last race, but the public doesn't know. To keep ratings high, she needs someone to step into his shoes. Jensen is her perfect candidate. If he agrees and wins just one more race, Frankenstein had already won 4. He'll earn his freedom. The offer is tempting, but Jensen hesitates. The death race is no ordinary competition. It's a bloodbath where only the strongest survive. Hennessey, however, won't take no for an answer. She threatens Jensen with solitary confinement, ensuring that he understands he has no choice. Reluctantly, Jensen agrees. Jensen is then taken to the prison's auto shop, where he meets Coach and his team, the mechanics responsible for Frankenstein's car. They introduce him to his vehicle, a heavily modified Mustang V8 fastback, armed with an array of deadly weapons. They explain the brutal rules of the race, emphasizing that every team is on its own. Escape is impossible. The prison is surrounded by water, and any attempt would be met with overwhelming force. As Jensen familiarizes himself with the car, Coach explains the structure of the death race. It's divided into 3 stages. In the first 2, the goal is to eliminate as many opponents as possible. The final stage is all about speed. Each driver is paired with a navigator, usually a woman from the women's prison. The only exception is Joe, a ruthless driver who uses a male team member. As the team talks, Liz points out the key drivers in the race. There's 14K, a triad member with a genius-level intellect. Hector Grimm, a psychopath who worships Hennessey. Slovo Pachenko, the Aryan Brotherhood leader. And finally, Travis Colt, a disgraced NASCAR star. Their conversation is cut short when Joe and his crew approach Jensen. Joe, radiating arrogance, makes it clear that this race is a showdown between him and Frankenstein. The tension is unbearable as the scene fades, setting the stage for the deadly competition ahead. The scene takes an unexpected turn when a van pulls into the prison yard, returning inmates from a work assignment. Jensen's sharp eyes catch an unusual detail. The inmates are all wearing GPS tracking bracelets on their wrists. This seemingly mundane observation jolts Jensen's memory. The man who murdered his wife had been wearing one of those bracelets too. The realization hits him like a freight train. Somewhere among these inmates could be the key to clearing his name and finding justice. Finally, it's time for the first stage of the death race. The air in the prison is electric, buzzing with anticipation. Jensen is taken to a prep area where he is handed Frankenstein's iconic gear, his clothes, his mask, and even his signature ring. With every piece of the ensemble, Jensen feels himself slipping into the role of the legendary racer. When he steps out in full costume, the effect is immediate. The audience watching from around the world roars in excitement. The ratings, which have been declining, skyrocket as fans tune in to see the enigmatic Frankenstein back on the track. Back in the garage, Coach offers Jensen some crucial advice. Don't talk to the other drivers, he warns. Frankenstein's mystique is part of the act. Silence keeps them guessing. However, there's one small reprieve. Jensen can remove the mask while he's in the car, thanks to its mirrored windows. Only his navigator, Case, knows the truth about who's behind the mask. As Jensen and Case prepare for the race, he takes a moment to break the ice. "Why are you here?" he asks. Case's answer is both shocking and revealing. She admits to killing a cop, her own husband, because he was abusive. The weight of her words lingers in the air, but there's no time for further conversation. The engines roar to life, signaling the beginning of the race. The first lap starts with an eerie calm, at least by death race standards. Since the weapons won't activate until the second lap, the drivers are left to rely on their car's raw power and aggressive tactics. Jensen quickly learns that this isn't an ordinary race. It's a battlefield on wheels. Drivers smash into each other, trying to shove opponents off the track. Thanks to Case's sharp navigation skills, Jensen keeps pace with Joe, the reigning champion. When Case spots a hidden shortcut, she guides Jensen through it. The gamble pays off, and Jensen takes the lead. But as the race enters its second lap, all bets are off. Hennessey flips a switch, activating the weapons and shields. Now, it's a full-blown war. To unlock their weapons, drivers must skillfully steer their cars over activation manholes, hitting all four wheels perfectly. Chaos erupts as drivers unleash their arsenal. Explosions rock the track, smoke fills the air, and the sound of gunfire drowns out the roaring engines. Hennessey raises the stakes even further by deploying death heads, deadly traps strategically placed along the course. The traps prove fatal for one driver, as Grimm slams his car into one, sending debris flying everywhere. Grimm uses his weapons to slow down Joe, spraying oil onto his car and forcing him to skid. But Grimm's moment of dominance is short-lived. 14K, ever the opportunist, fires a missile directly at Grimm's vehicle. The explosion forces Grimm off the track, but he manages to crawl out of the wreckage. His reprieve doesn't last. Joe finishes him off by ruthlessly running him over. Meanwhile, Jensen struggles with a malfunctioning machine gun. The weapon jams at the worst possible moment, leaving him vulnerable. Acting quickly, Case climbs onto the hood of the car to fix the gun mid-race, dodging bullets from their rivals. Jensen's expert driving keeps them alive, weaving through the chaos with precision. Once the gun is operational again, Case scrambles back into the passenger seat, just as bullets ricochet off the car's armor. As the mayhem intensifies, Jensen's instincts kick in. He notices an opportunity to steal a defensive manhole activation from Colt, another driver. However, just like with the real Frankenstein, the defense systems fail to work. Bullets shred through the car's rear shield, leaving them exposed. Thinking fast, Jensen devises a risky plan. He tells Case to unhook the napalm canister from the car and climb into his lap. With quick timing, Jensen ejects her seat, launching the canister onto Colt's car. Case adds the finishing touch by tossing the car's lighter onto the napalm, igniting a massive explosion. Colt's car is engulfed in flames, eliminating him from the race. With Colt out of the way, the race becomes a head-to-head showdown between Jensen and Joe. The tension is palpable as the two racers push their cars to the limit. But then, something catches Jensen's eye, a chillingly familiar gesture. Pachenko, one of the drivers, makes a taunting motion with his hand, the same gesture the man who murdered Jensen's wife had made before leaving the crime scene. The sight freezes Jensen in his tracks, the flood of memories distracting him from the race. Joe seizes the opportunity, ramming into Jensen's car and forcing him into last place. Meanwhile, Pachenko claims first place, reveling in his victory. By the time the dust settles, the results are grim. 3 drivers are dead, and 6 remain to fight another day in the deadly second stage. The stage is set for an even more dangerous and personal battle as Jensen grapples with the horrifying truth. His wife's killer is closer than he ever imagined. Did you enjoy the recap? Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell to be updated next time we drop. Thanks for watching.